All right, hey everybody. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite parts of painting a landscape. Now, just to show you what I've done so far, because it's already got like 3 layers, but I've kept my palette really simple. Prussian Blue is one of my favorite colors ever. Liquitex is a great brand. But this is basically Prussian blue and white. So far, I added the background of just a solid gradation. And then I've come back in and added some white to tint the Prussian blue out to kind of show where my clouds are going to be, where I want the horizon to be, and where our mountains are going to be in the foreground. So I've let this dry. You can see it's really dry now. But this is where it gets fun. This is how you can add atmosphere to a painting without thinking about it too much. This technique is actually called glazing or glazing up. And it's where you take a semi-translucent color and you kind of apply it to the whole thing. And so everybody knows when you mix red and blue, you get purple, right? So I'm going to use this hot pink, which is my favorite, most fluorescent hot pink I have found. If you have one that's hotter, let me know, because I'm always on the search for the hottest hot pink. But it's a very nice translucent color, and it's going to take a couple layers of doing this to glaze it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that straight pink. Now, as I go over this, where it's wider is going to be pinker, but where it's bluer, it's going to turn purple. I'm going to add a little bit of water. I don't want it too wet, but we don't want to use a draw brush either, not yet. Here's where it gets fun. We're going to do a hot pink sky. We're going to start at the horizon line. And we're just going to lightly glaze the painting. So anywhere that it's lighter, where you've added white, you want to hit that with a thin coat of pink first. Don't get all the way down here yet, and don't get all the way down here yet, because we're going to do this 3 or 4 times. And each time we do it, this pink is going to get pinker. And then when you move up into the top of the clouds and the foregrounds of the mountains, you'll just have a light coat of pink, because further away, things are going to glow with the sun. And the closer they get to you, they're not going to glow as much. So we just want to keep adding a little bit of pink. Sometimes you get a booger in there. It's okay. We're just going to add a little bit of pink without going all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to start building up this thin pink. And you see what's happening here? That hot pink is mixing with that Prussian blue, and it's making this wonderful violet. Now, as this goes up, there's not going to be as much contrast because the sun's not going to be as bright up there, but you still want to see a hint of that pink. And the sun's coming up this way, so at the bottom of these dark clouds is going to have more pink. So I want to hit the bottom of the dark clouds while barely hitting where I've tinted with white. This is going to be, if you've got your brush watered down enough, you're really not going to see any specific brush strokes. You're just glazing it with thin paint right now. And then I'll go back in. This is starting to dry. That's where it's going to be the brightest, and we're just going to keep doing that. I'm going to do this probably twice right now. And then I'm going to let it dry for a few minutes. Don't forget your edges. Always take what's left over your brush and carry it around. Okay. Looks pretty good for right now. So I'm gonna let this dry for 2, 3, 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. This is dry. We're gonna do the same thing again. I'm gonna get a watered down brush with some of our hot pink paint. And we're gonna do this 2 or 3 times. I'm gonna hit the sun first where you want the brightest pink. And then work up from there. This is helping push the background back while bringing the foreground forward. As you're gonna give your painting some depth this way. So these are just really thin layers, and I know everybody's heard me talking about painting taking forever because you have to do it in layers, and then you gotta let it dry. And you do another layer and you let it dry. And sometimes your layers don't require a lot of work, but then you just gotta let it dry before you do it again. And this is why it's called glazing up, because you're doing a little bit at a time. We're still working with just thin pink. So the only colors I've used for this right now is Prussian blue, titanium white. What do they call this pink? Fluorescent pink. So hot pink. Now, if your painting is still wet and then you add a wet brush to it, you'll actually take off paint, and you don't want to take off paint. So sometimes you can turn your painting on the side and it'll get this little sheen. You can tell where it's drying and starting to get tacky and where it's still wet. And let it get a little dry, and then you add more pink. It seems to adhere best that way. Do you notice how we're getting some nice purples? The pink is getting brighter, and you're starting to get like an atmosphere feeling. This is like painting air. You're painting air. The reason this works is because of how your eye works. And if you study about how your eyes work, the colors they see, and how things reflect back to you, it ends up making a lot more sense. I've done a lot of studying about how our eyes work and how we perceive color. Like, for example, a lot of things in nature aren't actually blue. We just perceive them as blue. It's also why when you go like to the lake and the water's clear, but it looks turquoise, it's because some colors are absorbed by the light and some bounce back. So what's happening when you have an opaque layer at the back? It's kind of like the back of a mirror. If you have a dark opaque color at the back, that's like where the back of the mirror is, where things stop and bounce back to your eye. So anything that's transparent or translucent on top of that, it allows light to pass through it. And then your eye optically mixes these. Because see, I haven't added any purple to this painting. I've only added pink and blue. But because of the optical mixing and the translucency and how we view images, the light goes through the pink, gets to the back of the blue, bounces back, which optically mixes this beautiful purple color. And we're just going to keep doing this a little bit at a time, really light. I mean, it's when you paint like this, especially from your head, it's your painting, and clouds do what they want. So you can make it look like however you want it to look. But typically, to get this perspective to where everything goes back and then back towards your eye, you want to follow the sun. The sun's going to hit the bottom of this cloud, the bottom of this cloud, the bottom of this cloud. And as the sun hits the bottom of these clouds, your back opaque layer is showing you where it goes up and out. Like, we can actually start working a little further down now. Remember the first 2 or 3 layers, we didn't go to the top or the bottom. We're going to put a thin layer of pink over this. And you just kind of have to trust the process. It looks funny when you're painting or as it's drying. But as it dries, it comes together. All right, we're about ready to let it dry again. And hit it again. You don't want to use as much pink the higher up you go, but you want to make sure the whole canvas is talking to each other. You want these colors to kind of talk to these colors and everything. Bring your eye to the focal point. Now, focal points usually have the most contrast, so, and the most saturation. Not always, there are no rules in art, but your eye is going to want to go here because that's the brightest color. So we don't want everything else in the painting that bright. If you have every cloud as bright as this one where the sun is, then they're all going to fight with each other. It'll flatten your image, and it's what artists refer to as fruit salad syndrome. You know, a bowl of fruit is beautiful, but when everything is the same brightness and saturation, it kind of flattens an image. So you want to keep these slight neutrals back here. This is drying again. And this is just going to keep getting pinker and pinker. Just a little less water, a little more pink. Now, right about when you think that pink looks good, like when you're like, all right, it's looking like those sunsets. Let it dry again. And then when we come back, I'm going to show you another trick, because we want that pink to be so bright that it just jumps out at you, even though it's far away. You want your eye to go there. Now, what we've done so far is build up translucent layers on top of the opaque. So even though this looks really pink right here, it's still got a lot of purple in it. If you want pink, hot pink in particular, to be as bright as it can be, you want to have white underneath it. So what I'm going to do next, and this is going to be the icing on the cake, is I'm going to let this dry. It's going to be totally dry. And then I'm going to come in with a touch of white, straight white, right here where the sun would be, right along the ridge line as the sun sets. And then after we let that white dry, we're going to come back in with solid hot pink. And what's going to happen with that is it's going to pop. It's going to pop off. So I'm going to let this dry a few minutes, and I will be right back. Okay, we're back. This is dry. This is what the painting looks like so far. I know I said we were going to come back and add straight white in the next layer, but what I've decided to do is I'm gonna mix just the tiniest bit of lemon yellow or light yellow with my white, because what that's gonna do when I go back in to add the next layer of hot pink is gonna give you just a tiny sliver of orange. Orange and blue are complements. It'll really add another dimension to the painting, I think. So, let's see, I believe it was Monet that realized about primary colors and complementary colors. It's really neat. If you want to know what the complement of something is, you just mix the other two colors together. For example, red, blue, and yellow are primaries. So if you mix blue and yellow together, you're going to get green, and that's the complement of red, the other primary. So it doesn't matter where you're at on the color wheel. If you mix two of the primaries, the color you're going to get from that is the complement to the other color. So that's why I'm decided to add just a tiny bit of yellow to my white, because when that gets mixed with pink, it'll create an orange, which is the opposite or complement to blue. So this is another trust the process thing, and it's going to look a little funny for a minute. Just bear with me. So we're going to establish where the sun is. I mean, that looks good already. Your eye is almost already mixing those colors together. And that's what we want. And when you get to this point, you don't want to do what we call kitty licking. You don't want to lick it to death. Get it down and stop. So you already see what's happening here. I really like the way that looks. And I'm gonna let that dry, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so this is dry. Everything looks good. You can see it pretty good. I'm gonna touch that just so you can see it's actually, there you go. It's actually darker. We got old 80s lights in here, so we're working with some terrible lighting. Everything's dry. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I noticed that I accidentally, when I was doing that white down here, I accidentally got a drop there, and there, and there. And instead of trying to scratch that off or rub it off, kind of looks like stars. So I'm going to leave that alone. This is what we were talking about with happy accidents, is that, and sometimes instead of trying to fix something, you just kind of roll with it. What I might end up doing with this piece is making this darker and adding some stars. We'll see what happens. But right now we're on the last few steps of the sunset. So we've added our white with a tint of yellow. We're gonna go back in with a wet brush, again with some thin hot pink. And we're gonna go over what we've done, because what's gonna happen now is that white is there, and white reflects light. We go over it with pink. That's gonna look way brighter than the rest of the pink. You see how that has a different look to it? See how it seems to glow a little more now? It's got a thin layer of pink over it. Let me do that again. Now that pink, it's over that yellow white, almost has this orange feel to it. Now, I've not mixed any, I've literally just used primary colors here. I've used blue, pink, and yellow, and then some white. I didn't mix purple, I didn't mix orange. I'm letting your eye mix it for you. And then we're gonna do the same thing we did again, get a little bit of water. Spread that out. See what I'm doing here? Going back over it with a thin coat of that. We're glazing up again. And one thing I don't care for about this fluorescent pink is sometimes you can kind of, what I call break the paint. Just like you'd break a roux when you're cooking and it doesn't want to work. It usually means you have too much liquid. Do you see how much brighter that just got? Now you can do this 2 or 3 more times. You could make it as bright as you want. Now, the important thing is to carry this translucent pink all the way down. And if you're from the mountains, you know that the ridge lines have more of a silhouette to them. And then as the mountains go down, they actually get lighter. The Smoky Mountains, it'll be dark, lighter, dark, lighter, dark, lighter, all the way down. And so what we've done now is made that sun the brightest part of the painting. So it doesn't matter how you view it, your eye is automatically gonna go there. Now that's pretty thick pink paint, so we're gonna have to let that dry a few more minutes. Now you notice I've not really messed with anything up here. But I think I'm going to. I mentioned those happy accident stars, right? Okay, so stars. Stars are fun. Wasn't expecting to do that in this, but we're gonna add them. Stars, the way they work, the harder you try to look at them, the less you can see them, but they have a glow around them, like an ambiance, and then you got the central point of where the light's coming from. So kind of what we've done with layering up here, we're not just gonna start with putting one dot of the star somewhere. We're going to actually make the surrounding aura of the star first. Now the sky, I've used Prussian blue, and you want it to be a little lighter. Let me get some Prussian blue, I'm sorry. There's the Prussian blue. I need a little more. So you want, just like when you look at the moon and you see that glow around it. It's not like a distinct line, white and blue, it's just glows. So wherever we decide to put a star, we want the glowing part to be lighter than the background so you can see it. And I'll start with a dot, and then I'm gonna use my finger. This is acrylic paint, so like don't do this with like oil paint and lead white and cadmiums and stuff. Like, I probably shouldn't be doing this with acrylic. It's fine. You could wear gloves if you want to. I'm not dead yet. Titian painted until he was 98 with lead paint, so Liquitex ain't gonna kill you. All right, so say I want to start there. And then we're just gonna blend it out. And we're just gonna keep adding the star, then using your finger to go outwards from it. Okay. And then you can get brighter with white. You don't want too big of a dot, because of the optical mixing thing I said before. Oh, one important thing. If you use blue on your brush, and you add white, don't go into yellow. You gotta clean your brush. It happens. You don't wanna make green if you're trying to make light yellow. take the tiniest little dot. Do you see how it kind of glows now? Because we faded it out. Okay, so we got a star. You can kind of see it. It's a pretty big star. So we're gonna try to make these other ones a little smaller. But we're still gonna do the same thing. Put a dot. And I'll make a circle. Boom, done. Okay, what do we got? We got two stars. That looks pretty good. I do things like this. I don't work in even numbers. I'll do 3 or I'll do 5. So let's do 5. So we have these 2 tiny ones down here, but let's do 5. Let's do another one up here. I don't really want them to be in line with any of the other stars. Dot. Rub it out. Okay. Well, that looks pretty good. Let's do, there's 3. Let's do 2 close together somewhere. What feels right. I don't know if they can hear the wind howling, but it's pretty windy out there. Okay. And we have these accidentals down here. They gotta be really small though. I don't want them big at all. Okay. Here, that looks nice. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, odd number. I'm good with that. That's one of my rules. I just like things in odd numbers. All right, that pink is dried. We're gonna kind of do the same thing we did before with the light yellow and the white. Except this time we're gonna do it just a little less. I'm not gonna do it as big as the original line. Sometimes I'll lift my brush and then I'll just do like a dot or 2 like it's catching a cloud. And then if you do something on the other side of the ridge, just don't make it as bright. You know you're doing a good job when your eyes can't focus on your painting anymore because the colors get so intense. It's looking pretty good. Everybody likes trees. I feel like we need to add a tree to this. Okay. All right. So there's the only colors we've used in this painting now, because we started with Prussian blue and Prussian blue, titanium white, fluorescent pink, and then we added like a lemon yellow. I don't remember if it's Hansa light or something, or cadmium light, but it was a yellow. So we've used the primary colors in white. There's no black in this yet. If you'll notice, I've not used a super dark yet, and that's for a reason, because we're gonna do that now. And we're going to try to add a nice pine tree. All right, pine tree. Let's see. I think we're gonna need a pine tree in here. Again, odd numbers. I'll either do 1 tree, 3 trees, or 5 trees. But I'll probably do one here, a smaller one here, carefully not to block the sun, and then maybe a small one here. So let's say 3 trees. Okay. So I'm going to use Prussian blue in full strength because it almost looks black when it's straight out of the tube. It's such a pretty color. And then we're just not gonna think about it and put it in. Oh God, here we go. I usually use my pinky so I don't wobble. I'll do this quickly. And here we go, 1, 2, 3. And then push down at the bottom where it gets thicker. Okay, don't touch it. Again, tree number 2. We don't want it to be as big as this tree or block that. And maybe he's not perfect. He's not gonna stand up straight. Let's do a small one here with just a tiny angle. See, 2. Okay. Now a third one over here. Okay. Meow. Okay. Boom. There's our tree trunks. Think about it, don't think about it. Put it in, don't touch it. And then this is a scary part. And the only way I know how to describe to do this is to really just not think about it. The more you think about it, the more you'll mess up. So I got a fan brush and you gotta zoom in on it. There you go. Fan brush. And at the tops of the trees, I'm only gonna use the edge of the fan brush. When I do this, I tell myself just go faster. The faster you go, the better it looks. So you kind of have to mentally prepare, don't think, go fast. So here we go. 1, 2. And if you start slowing down or thinking about it, you're not, you're slowing down and you're thinking about it too much. I know it looks funny right now, but you just gotta trust it. Now these trees are in the foreground, they're closer to you. This is why I add them at the end. They're not gonna have as much of that pink glow. They'll have some, but they won't have as much as the rest of the landscape or atmosphere. Fast, fast, fast. Boom, done. Okay, all right, I like that. Now when I got my trees done, like I said, they'll have a little bit of pink glow, but not a lot. So I'm gonna take a small round brush. And so the sun's there. So this side of the tree will be lit up. And then I'm just going to run down in between those branches. It's too much pink. Run down in between those branches with some pink. Now it looks like the sun's hitting it. It doesn't take much. Same thing with this one. The sun's gonna hit it this way, so. just where it's in between the branches. Don't get in there where it's dark because there's no light there. Trees look like they're glowing a little bit now. Same thing over here, except the sun will hit this side. Okay. And wash my brush out. Now in between where that pink and that dark blue is, I'm gonna take the same blue, but I'm gonna add a little bit of white to it. And this blue is gonna match this cloud color up here. And in between those two, between the pink and the depression, I'll go down it like this, and we'll hit the tree arc with some of that. Okay. More at the top, less at the bottom. And then I'll take the same color that I've already got and I will hit the top of these branches. Just the tops. Lightly, quickly, without thinking too much. You can do a few on the other side. Don't want to go too much. A little less is more here. Just enough to show you where the tree is. But only on the tops of the limbs. And I need a little more Prussian blue. We'll darken up a little bit of this at the bottom because as the trees go down, they're going to get darker. This is going to be more of a silhouette down here, so we're basically topping off the painting by making the foreground. Foregrounds are difficult. I think everybody kind of struggles with foregrounds a little bit, even fantastic artists, but the closer things get to you, the more detailed they are, but the more ambiguous you almost want them to be because they're not the focal point. Again, this is the focal point. So what I'm doing now is just taking some straight Prussian blue and I'm darkening up the bottom of these trees. Let's get a different brush. I don't like that round brush right now. I'm gonna get an angle brush. Use the edge of it. There we go. It's helping. Put more paint on there. If you have to stop and keep putting a bunch of paint on your brush, you need a bigger brush. I want to be darker at the bottom. You want to leave a little of that mountain showing through it, but you don't want to do too much either. All right, let's see. Darken this up some more. It's harder to talk and paint at the same time and make things up as you go along than you think it is. It's not easy. I think I know what I'm doing. All right, and here's one thing I like to do. I get a pointy end of the brush, and let's pretend there's just a few random leaves here that aren't pine trees. So we got our pine trees. But let's just pretend there's like, I don't know, a poplar or an oak or something back here. So we're gonna put some leaves. Wash my brush out, get a nice edge. Get some paint, and then we just kind of lay the brush on there like a branch. Just a straight line. Maybe have some there. You don't want to think about it too much. You really, I mean, like, I'm totally making this up as I go. I get a clean brush. I'm gonna bring my sun back out a little more like we did. So every time it dries, when things dry, they get darker. So sometimes you have to go back in a second or third time to actually get the color you want. I'm using mostly white, touch of yellow, because we did the first stroke and then the second stroke. This will be the third, and this is the most white, so we're not going to use a whole bunch. We're just going to barely drag it right there, just a touch. You don't want to use a lot of straight white in a painting because it can make it look chalky and flatten it out. But that's the secret to getting a really nice, bright, white fire sunset. Saving that last touch of white for the very end. So I want to say there's somewhere around, we did 9, 10, up to 12 layers of paint right here to achieve that. That looks pretty good to me. Wouldn't hurt to bring in just a smidge of yellow. That's almost that same color, but just a touch here or there, just like it's catching in the sun. You don't want to put it everywhere. Make it glow. Just dot there, dot there. This will also talk to those stars. There you go. I'll fix that. I don't like that top. Fix this top. There we go, that's better. And touch up a few things, but at this point you really don't want to mess with too much. Hey, that looks pretty good. Ain't too shabby. What do you think? I'll try to get a better picture of it. Our lighting's terrible, but here's your Thanksgiving sunset painting. Voila.